Okay, so what are you laughing at?
Nothing I can say on camera.
Welcome to the raised hunting. You just like
I'm
coughing
sorry.
and hacking. Welcome to the raised hunting pot. Just stupid.
Okay, go on.
Welcome to the raised hunting podcast. I got Easton and Warren and myself here today.
I'm
And
sure you were gonna do it again.
I considered I thought it'd be too much.
it would be because I'll quit. And so, what we're going to do today is talk about how not to be a jerk, which my boys have not learned.
We
They
get it
can't
from
figure it
you.
out. No, we're going to talk about prep. I mean, it's July right now, almost August, and so this is that time of year when, honestly, I feel like as much of your hunting season is being done now as it is when hunting season is actually going. Now, there's a certain person sitting here that does not agree with that statement at all, and hence the reason I think we picked this topic is, excuse me, I think there'll be a pretty good debate here. So, anyhow,
It's gonna be a
we're
smackdown. It could be a debate.
well, we can start wherever we want, but I mean,
We need to outline what the actual controversy is.
well,
Just straight
not
up.
necessarily controversy, but outline what we, why we do what we do, and um,
yes,
know-
outline
yes,
what you're
we're
defining.
we're discussing here whether what amount of time you're putting into your preparation
Yeah, when does
before
it-
the season.
when
Is
does
it
it start?
necessary
Right.
or is it not necessary? And if so, how much? And if not, do you even pay attention to it?
Well, and to answer that question, I would say anything that you put more time into, you're going to get more out of it. It doesn't matter whether it's hunting or deer hunting. It doesn't matter whether it's book work at school or work that you're doing at work. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. So it depends on what you want to get out of it, what you do, So anyhow, I think I feel like I have a major upper hand here because I have lived longer and I have been in all those. I've been in a position where I couldn't do anything. Hunted all public land, grew up in Washington, D.C. There was nothing that I could really do other than the only thing that you could do at that point is drive around on the roads and see if there was deer out on private ground next to the public land that you were going to hunt, and maybe you'd see a deer there. A lot of the places that I grew up hunting, couldn't even do that because you're driving through the neighborhoods. I mean, I'm hunting a 10-acre tract between two, and traffic, you couldn't stop and look at a deer or anything like that. That wasn't happening. So you didn't have any of that. You couldn't put food plots in. There was really not much you could do. Although I will say now that we've discovered some stuff that we've actually started promoting and coming out with is glandular scents. I probably could have been doing some stuff like that at that time, even if it was making my own scrapes. I didn't know enough about deer at the time to know that I could have been doing something, and trail cameras didn't exist. So that'll give you guys a little bit of idea on how old I am, that I've been hunting longer than trail cameras have been provided. And that means even the D-cell ones. I was on the board when the first D-cell trail cameras came out, and they were humongous, looked like a small telephone that you stuck on the. So,
So what's your take on it? What do you think?
I think it's 365. I think that deer hunting for me anyhow is year round. And I could go into all kinds of things, but from the time that the moment that I shoot a deer, I'm already thinking about what am I going to do to try to kill the one next year, or I'm trying to locate the deer that I'm looking for next year, or that next. We have some spots. I think all of us would agree on this. We have some spots that are just money. They're the right stand location. We know if we go sit there, if we take someone else there, they got a good chance of killing a deer. Maybe not all those are killing our target like a big buck, but they're just really, really good. And so I'm always looking for that next one. Where is that next spot?
I think it's 365 because you want it to be.
100%.
Like I mean,
What's
I
the
think
point in during like the winter though, when they have no antlers?
I'm not worried as much about the deer then as what I can see as far as
they're doing.
ground cover. I can see the trails. I can see the scrapes, the rubs. They all stand out like a sore thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part of it, the deer themselves tell me who made it. If I can now, once they lose their antlers, then no. But I mean, that's usually more like spring is what I'd call that, not winter.
so. I think where we disagree is I agree to an extent. I think that putting in more work, there's nothing that it can't hurt. You're not going to lose anything there. I think the few things we differ on is I don't think that you need to think that the amount of time and the amount of effort that you can put in the summer, in certain scenarios, not all, because there are certain times, but is that information is useless come fall. Because, one, you got a whole bunch of bucks that have different fall ranges than they do summer ranges, which the other thing, too, that I was talking to Eli last night about is I think now I might know exactly when that time frame is, because we've only had 2 deer this year that were super unique bucks. That's the only reason I think that we were able to pick this up. So the one with all the points off his Zygarde, both of them. So we have 2 deer that are super unique. And then if you noticed, I would like to go back and look at the date and figure out exactly what it is. But both those bucks were all the time in the same spot, right?
Yep.
And then within probably a week of each other, they both completely gone.
Right.
Now, we found one of them, but he's a mile and a half away. The rest of them, though, the other one, we don't know where he is, and he's completely gone. But if you go back and you look at past years, those deer come back during the fall. So my point with that is you can do as much as you want in summer trying to prep for that deer. It doesn't do you any good when he's gone or he's somewhere else. And then you're going to have other deer that are going to have to move in. Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about, let's just say, for instance, 200 acres. You're not going to keep that deer on that property. But I think the other thing that you have to look at is I think food plots and stuff can help, but there's a lot of circumstances where, and I heard a guy say this, and I think he's 100% right, but I just won't do it because I don't want to do it. He said that your in-season scouting is way more important than actually hunting. And I agree with him. Like that and what he means is not going hunting. That you can go in glass or sitting places just in observation stands, and you're just trying to see what the deer are doing and where they're at to try and kill them. And I agree with him 100%. I think he's correct. But I like hunting too much, so I would rather hunt and try and figure it out than have to be in my truck or walking and just sitting on a fence line glassing. I would rather be at least hunting and trying to figure that out. So my point with this is last year, Eli and I were trying to kill a specific deer before I killed my deer. So this plays into yours a little bit because maybe some of your preparation helped me kill the deer that it did, which was a time burner, really, because we were trying to kill this other buck. And this buck ended up we had no cameras. Well, I ended up putting a camera there, and that's how I found him. I cheated, used a cell cam. That's how I knew he was there. But
Dang cell cam.
after that, we didn't have a stand down there. We didn't have anything. But since we were doing the mobile hunting thing, hunting in saddles and setting up every time, I was able to hunt him where he was. We didn't have any stands there. We didn't have anything prepared to be able to hunt him where he was. And I almost killed him. I think I would have if I hadn't killed the other deer before, just because we were able to hone in on where he was and we were able to be moving around and get close to him based on what he was doing at the time of year that you could hunt him.
Okay,
But it's all going to change. But I think that this is the first year I've put cameras out to, like, one, I enjoy watching them grow. That has nothing to do with whether it's going to reward me or not, but I enjoy seeing them grow from when they're first getting their antlers to what they are to the end of it. So that's just an enjoyable part. But the other part is that you just said it last night when we were talking about deer, is that we have a picture, or you saw something, or we found his antler or something of the deer I have right now that is there. So when I'm doing my summertime stuff, I'm being able to, one, I can go move around a lot more because I'm out there. I'm not worried about busting deer and worried about where they're going and everything and seeing where they're at. And two, I'm seeing what I have there in general. And I don't think, I agree, some of them are moving, like you're saying, where they're a mile and a half away or whatever it is. But right now I have a lot of the deer that I do know that are there, I'm probably going to have at least in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But I'm not also willing to wait to see if I'm going to have a target buck show up in the season. I'm going to try to find him now so that I know that where I need to be hunting, or if I need to be trying to find somewhere else to.
I agree. I think if you're
move
trying
around.
to kill one certain specific deer, that it would be more important to be putting in more time during the summer. But fortunately for us, living in Iowa, I think you guys would all agree. You could go hunt any place pretty much in Iowa, and the chances of there being a deer that's in the 160 plus range is 85, 90+%.
There's a lot of them.
There's anywhere that you're not going to be able to have a
But
deer
at the
that's
same
of that
time,
caliber.
you still have to. There's tons of people I know that still, with that percentage of big deer, can't kill a big deer.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
that,
And it's still difficult. It's
but
a
is that
challenge. You
because
have
of the work they're not putting in the summer, or they don't know what they're doing in the fall?
I think it's probably both. If they're not putting any work in to study the deer for one, and two, hunting in the fall, that they're missing something up.
I I want to go back to the deer you're talking about that you found compared to the deer that you killed last year.
Are we
and-
not allowed to use names?
We'll just
They're both dead.
Well, people
No, he's
don't know
not.
who people
One's
don't
isn't.
people don't know
I'm
who they
thinking-
are.
I'm thinking of a different
We
deer
didn't.
then.
The deer Warren shot. We didn't have a name for him. He was just a Big Ten.
Yeah.
Oh,
know-
you're not talking about Bullwinkle?
No, no, not at
Oh.
all. So, but what I'm getting at is the amount of knowledge that I had about where you killed your deer came, and there's some of that in season scouting because I had a camera there the year before, and I saw what those deer were doing, and I was able to see which way they were coming in and out of that scrape, and it made sense. And Eli was with me. Me and him were hunting one day when I decided let's move this stand. We had never even set foot in the stand. And that was his question to me was, don't you think we should hunt it once and see? And I was like, no, I know it's in the wrong spot. Because I realized something later on, and that was, and it was something that I couldn't have seen in the summertime, but I saw it in the fall. Leaves started to come off, and all of a sudden there's that edge, and where the stand actually sits is a different kind of timber than what is 15 yards away. And that's why those deer are walking that line, and they're coming up there. There's no fence line there. There's not a creek bottom there that makes it definitive, but all of a sudden I could see it in the timber. I'm like, look at this line, and edges, for whatever reason, they follow them, they walk them, and that doesn't mean they walk right on them. When people say a deer walks a fence line, a lot of times we get confused and we think, oh, put a stand right here and shoot him 5 feet from the fence. It might be 20 yards, 30 yards off that fence, but they're following that fence line because the habitat grows in accordance to that fence line, or the forage that they're after is on the other side of the fence. So there was a scouting preparation that took place all year long. But going back to the deer that you didn't kill, had we had more summer, if you had said, I'm going to put in some time and find him and see where he is rather than finding him during hunting season.
I knew where he was in the summer.
But my point is that you didn't have enough knowledge to know to go in there and be able to shoot him. Could you have possibly walked in there in August and September? Because I think that deer stays in a core area there. He's pretty much, and I do think that there is some validity to the older deer get, the smaller their core area becomes, the less they travel about. Because we're seeing 3-year-olds right now that we know for a fact that are 3 that are traveling a mile and a half in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I think you have to specify it because one, I think the biggest thing to me, if it's a deer that I'm trying to kill and I know and it's a specific deer, I'm a lot more excited about that deer if I have pictures from the year before. Just because if he was there during the summer the year before, and then he was there during the fall, that deer is probably a homebody.
That's probably his home range.
Yep.
Agreed.
But if I just started hunting a place and he's only there during the fall, and then I'm trying to find him all summer, I don't want to be stressing about, oh my God, he's not here, because there's a good chance that he's just a mile away in some bean field, and then he comes right back in fall. So I think that I'm not saying that I don't think that. I think that I don't really know that it is that important. I mean, I think that taking inventory is good and it helps give you an idea of what is in your area. I don't know that it contributes all that much to killing deer.
I think I'll narrow this down for us a little bit more. I think that if we take the fact of if you're, like my situation this year, I've set a goal, right, that I want to kill 170-plus inch deer. I'm going to put in every bit of work I can to find a 170-inch deer. Because
Okay,
that is one thing where I'm not sure. It's not a given that I'm going to walk out there and find one. Now, if I was just hunting like I normally do, I'll walk out in the woods and whatever buck walks by that gets me going, I'm shooting. Not worried about it. But if you're picking if you have a goal of a certain size deer or a specific deer, I think it is very important to be able to at least try to get on that deer, find what he's doing, where he's at, which deer you're trying to find during the summer, because that tells me a lot as to where I'm going to be.
Where you want to spend your time.
Because like right now, I know that I have one deer that I know that possibly could be a shooter. And where he's at now, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to if I wasn't scouting this summer at all. I probably would have been like, I overlooked it just like I have the past couple of years.
But you've killed some good deer the last couple of years too.
I have, but I don't know. I don't know if there's what I'm trying to kill this year there
Yeah,
right now.
I think I agree. If you're trying, so let's just say that it's a 170-inch deer that we're saying we're all trying to kill. I agree. I think if I was you, honestly, I would be trying to find probably 4 or 5 during the summer.
I agree. That I
Because-
want to find the most I can because I don't know who else is gonna be still there.
Exactly. That's my point. Exactly. That now you're into a different caliber. Almost anywhere we can go sit and we're gonna have, and there's 150-inch deer around. That's just that is
Okay,
that is
but we better,
the nature of where
but
we
we
live.
better clarify because the average listener out there doesn't live in Iowa, probably.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
so-
even,
but
I'm
they could
talking about
just
whatever
say-
their goal is.
Yeah, and so when Easton says he's looking for a 170-inch deer, he's looking for the biggest deer that he's ever killed.
Yeah, I've never.
He's trying to kill one bigger than any, and most
which is
peo-
170.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but some other people might be 130 or
Yeah,
110.
And I'm saying that maybe so in your area, if you have 120-inch
Absolutely.
deer everywhere, then you probably don't need to be trying to locate a whole bunch of 120-inch deer during the summer in order to kill one. Now, if a 150-inch deer is the top end deer in your area, and yeah, you probably need to find 4 or 5. I'm telling if I was my goal this year was to kill a 180, I think that I need to have at least. Ideally, you probably need to have 6 or 7 because one, how many could get killed during youth season? How many are going to leave? And then 2, what wins and stuff. I mean, that gets you down to, let's just say that what percent of our bucks leave? Probably only like
That's going to depend.
20 to 30%, depending on the size of the place. So
I think there's
you're-
a lot of variance you're putting.
Yeah.
in
a
this that
ton, a
cannot-
ton
you
there.
you really
that-
need to have we need to have like strict parameters. Like it's a 100-acre piece that has
'cause
half ag and half timber or whatever, so that you
Well,
can.
that's the other thing I was going to say too is that this farm I've been hunting long enough now. I know the crop rotations around it, and I know where majority of where the deer are moving towards once fall starts coming, because you can tell that like the previous years when there's beans in this certain area, they're all kind of hanging out over here, or when there's corn in a different one of these fields, that I get a ton more deer over here during the summer than I will on the other side of the farm, and then it completely affects when they harvest, because my deer every year are in a different spot depending on what the crop rotation is, where I'm sitting my majority of my
that's going to play into wherever someone lives.
Right, that's where their stuff comes in there during the summer, that it makes it hard because their habits all changed by the time hunting season's
But then again, so then that goes to planting your own stuff, putting in food plots, and having something. Can you change the pattern of the deer to some extent? And
or can you
but at
hunt it
the
long
same
enough
time,
to
too-
understand their pattern of when
Absolutely.
this is this way and this is it? That's what I've done. I can't plant anything.
That's
so-
all in season though.
but you're talking.
And before though,
Except too, if you're in states like where you can hunt them September 1, that I would agree. Summer scouting
you
is
pattern them.
yeah. You should be killing your deer on the first day. That should be your goal, is to try and kill your deer on the very first day, because most of those deer, if they're anything like what we've seen in Montana and here, they're super patternable during those initial months, and you probably have a couple days, probably a week to 2 weeks in September to try and kill them on those patterns.
but
But ours doesn't open until October 1.
right. But my point is that summer part can also lead to, because I do believe like putting in food plots, making your own scrapes. I think you can change some of the pattern. Can I take a deer that's going to leave the farm? And I'll be the first one to admit, I've had a place where a deer summered, and I've had a food plot in there. Didn't keep that deer there. He still left and went to somewhere else. I ended up getting to hunt him somewhere else. But I have had deer that did come in the fall, and they started utilizing my food plot, and they started utilizing the food plot in the way that I recognized. Once I recognized the way they were utilizing it, then I took advantage of it, and I was able to kill them off that food plot. So there's a bunch of different variables that go into preseason. What are you looking for? And I think that the big difference that we're talking about here is hunting a target deer and hunting just a good deer, and saying, okay, I'm willing to shoot anything of this age class, or whether it's a 130-inch deer in their area or a 170-inch deer in their area. I'm without a doubt, if I'm not trying to specifically pick out one particular deer and say, okay, I'm going to put my efforts into it, although that I would tell someone that I have found that if you do that, I think you're more successful.
Well, so you're also doing so. I think that's a really good thing to be able to talk about. Is you and I have 2 clear differences on how we approach the deer. Your approach is that you want to manipulate that deer and get that deer to do what you want it to do. Would you
To some
agree?
extent.
Yeah, for the most part, putting them in food plots
Absolutely.
or getting
I
them
love
to hit a script.
calling.
You like
Yeah.
getting them to come do what
Yeah.
you do. I want that deer to never know that I'm there, to never have a clue that I exist, and that he does, that I figure out whatever he wants to do and what he likes to do, and then I'm going to capitalize that and I'm going to kill him. Because the reason I like going that way is just because I know he'll do it again. If he's comfortable doing it and I can get him to do it once or twice, I know at some point he's going to do it again, and if I can be in the right position, I'm going to kill him, or I'm going to get an opportunity. I don't really know what your approach is.
100%. No, I like to figure out wherever they're at, and then that's where I'm at. But I also so I think I'm a heck of a lot more practical hunter here between the three of us, because I hunt on a place where I have permission. Obviously, if I could probably plant food plots and stuff, I'd probably be doing that just to enhance the chance of them. Okay, I think that they're probably going to be coming here this time of year, like when we put our turnips in and stuff.
Right.
You know when they're going to be hitting that a lot harder. But as opposed to like the regular guy that's out there that is hunting public or is hunting, again, permission places, things like that, they can't manipulate the deer. And the only ways they can, that they would really have a chance that I can think of, is using like our scents and glands, things like that, where you can set a scrape. And even in those situations, unless you can get them using that scrape naturally, like they would use it themselves, I don't think you're going to keep a deer anywhere. A deer's going to go where he wants to go.
Yeah, he could get busted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the one thing I would state that I would agree with Dad on that I haven't gotten to try yet, other than the deer I shot last year, but I would be curious to try it this year, is we have a couple places where I don't know that, I'm trying to think, I don't really hunt the food plots or food sources hardly at all. I just, because I used to be all about hunting the fields and loved the field edges, and then I was never seeing big deer. And what I think, unless it was the prime rut, the big bucks just weren't coming out before dark. And so then once I learned the amount of deer, started figuring out the correct transition areas and the edge of bedding areas, and the amount of deer that I started seeing and the quality of deer, I've been addicted to that. So with what I'm saying there is, we have a couple spots where they're really, really good transition areas, or they're right on a bedding area where I got a lot of deer that come through and good deer, but I have a really, really difficult time getting them to come within shooting range, because it's all really good stuff. It's all good bedding, and there's nothing that pinches them down into one spot, and so I can't get them. It's just kind of, I'm close to them, and so then I'm just trying to get lucky enough that one of them chooses to walk the right trail. I would be really interested to see, and I'm probably going to try that this year, if I use something, and I think that the rub post would be the way to go. If I can find one
with a glandular scent.
Yeah, putting one of our scents on it and putting in a rub post in October, the last week of October. I mean, put it in early, but my goal would be to kill him in the month of October.
Right.
That I can get him now to, I'm already there where he wants to be. I'm already close, but now I've given him some reason to give me a shot. Yes.
So you're trying to, what I'm picking up is, would you put that before the season started in?
Yeah.
So that he's naturally, one, you're never going to be there because it's not the season, and two, he's naturally coming to that, or maybe you're getting him to come there, so now he's, then you are manipulating what he's doing, but you've made him also feel natural doing that.
I'm trying to manipulate him just a little bit by where he's already at. So I'm trying to
just get him a little encouragement to come on over.
Exactly. I'm trying to locate where he is, find where he feels comfortable, go in super early, and because most of those places, from my experience so far, has been close to wherever they're bedding. I want to have that in there really early, let him get used to that and start hitting in that when he's going, the one morning when I catch him and he's going there to bed anyways, that, it's October 20th something, and he's just fired up enough that, before I go and bed down where I'm comfortable, because that's his core area or whatever, I'm going to go hit this rub or hit this scrape and give me that opportunity.
Yep.
Because I've had a couple bucks now where I've had them multiple times come by. Like, I've found them and I know where they are, but I can't get them to, they're at 60 or they're at 40, but there's limbs in the way, or they go behind me somewhere. I can't get them right to exactly where I need them.
Well, that would depend on how much time you had to hunt, whether you just go ahead and take that shot.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, don't even get me started.
No.
That's a joke.
Yeah, that
That's
was a joke.
We've
heard people making claims like that. And so what we're talking about, though, is 60, 40 yards. It's not – we're looking for under 40 on whitetails almost religiously. My dog is laying on my podcast equipment here. So what is it though what is there any part that we agree on that you do? I mean, because the other part of that is the reason why I say you got to be out there in the summer is you need to be checking stands. I mean, you need to be checking and making sure that straps are up. If you're leaving them, if
Well,
you're not
that's
leaving
just-
them, you don't have to worry about that.
I do that anyways, but that's not necessarily scouting. That's or like
Not
But
for
it's still preparation.
because I'm probably
you
gonna
check
hunt
them every time you get into the stand.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna be hunting exclusively from a
Or
tree
saddle, yeah.
diaper this year. That's what everybody else makes fun of it.
Tree diaper.
Tree diaper, yeah.
Gotcha. But anyhow, so my point is that that there is, I guess there's a bunch of different ways to approach this. I enjoy it. That's one. But I also think that the knowledge that I have of whitetail deer has increased immensely as I've increased how much I scout and how much that I'm prepping for watching for them. I mean, I would have argued with someone, maybe not argued. I'd have just said, I don't know. I don't. But that deer are hitting scrapes in January. That deer are hitting scrapes in February, that they're still hitting scrapes when they just getting their headgear back on, that they're walking up and making a licking branch or they're pawing at the ground. It's just things that I never would have dreamed of. How does that transfer to hunting? Is I begin to understand the deer more, which has kind of started our whole glandular scent, trying to learn them more. And so I just don't think a person can have enough knowledge. You're never going to know it all. So the more that you can have on your side, I know like earlier today you were reading more on glandular scents, and no matter how much you read about them, you're never going to know it all. And we're going to keep watching and see what's the mannerism. Why did this deer do this? Why do some deer, make a licking branch where other ones walk up and put their preorbital gland on it? Why do other ones walk up and rub their forehead on the tree? I want to know those answers to those questions if possible. And because then I can possibly manipulate them. And I agree. I don't want someone to think that we're going and sticking a rub post or a rub tree out in the middle of a field and saying, watch this, we're going to make every buck in the country come over here. You have to do what you're doing, Warren, and that is we have to be able to get somewhere in that core area that they're already used to using it before we can try to manipulate them. But I will say there are times when I go into the woods 100% contingent on, I know this stand is not in the right spot. This stand is here because I'm going to rattle or I'm going to grunt. I'm going to put the deer where I need him to be.
And get them close, or
Yep.
relying on trying to get them close.
And that's because I can't move where I want to. Maybe the wind or the terrain doesn't allow me. Maybe I don't have permission to be where I need to be. So I have to rely on other things to be able to, and I'm willing to do that. I've had enough success with rattling deer in and grunting deer in that I'm willing to take that gamble that I can make them move 40 yards or 50 yards to give me that opportunity. So I think there's a bunch of stuff to be able to do preseason scouting wise. And like I said, I think like you're talking about, Easton, watching them grow is just another benefit to the whole thing,
Well, the other thing that I don't know the big difference, but you guys will, I'm sure, have an opinion on it. Winter, obviously, they're going somewhere to food source. They're going to, a lot of times if they need to move, they're going to go somewhere where they can winter at and they can have food and they don't need to go very far. They just kind of are living or surviving. During the winter, like if we still have snow on the ground, when they're dropping their antlers and stuff, if I'm ever out there, I love that. You mentioned it too, because I have spots right now where during the summer I have trail cameras by it or around it somewhere in the area because I can see everywhere where those deer were at, and where in this specific spot there wasn't really a food source all that close, so I didn't know exactly why they were wintering there. But I now have cameras there, and they're there, like very clearly that they're still there. Now, what I was going to say is I don't necessarily have a great opinion on is from the point of where they're wintering to where they're going to go to live in the summer. I don't know how big of a difference it is as opposed to like during the fall, when it goes from fall to winter, I feel like there's a pretty big difference where they're going to go somewhere where they can survive. I don't know if they really switch that a whole bunch when it's winter to summer or spring to summer, but
the answer to that is going to be regionally. I mean, the deer in Florida isn't going to winter anywhere, or in the East Coast. And the reason I say it is I've lived on the East Coast. I've lived down south. I've lived out west, and now I live in the Midwest. And the West and the Midwest have harsh enough winters that I think it can have a large effect. Those deer will go a long ways. When I say long ways, 5, 6, 10 miles, if the food, if they need the food.
Well, that's the thing too, is though.
Yeah, out west. I mean, you look at your game ranges and stuff for elk.
Those elk are
else.
traveling up to 60 miles.
Yeah.
But they have to. There's not a choice in the matter for them.
Yep.
Where I found that spot, I was not expecting. I found that and marked it on my Onyx. I was like, okay, I've almost never seen this many deer tracks in my life. So I'm just going to remember this just in case. And I go back this summer, and I wasn't expecting really to have much there yet. And they're all there still.
Right.
Which I found very odd because what I said, there's not a ton of food around or anything.
But
I also didn't know how long they would stay there.
I think in the Midwest, one, I think that a food plot like turnips or
Radishes,
stuff like that,
some kind of annual.
that when deer are put into a position where they have to feed, yeah, I think that is absolutely worth it because you're going to get deer to come to that, or standing beans or standing food sources. What I'm thinking of, most of the deer that I can think of, it seems as though if you have everything that they need in order to survive, when they show up for their fall range, that seems to usually be their winter range as well. I don't think that we see too many deer that come in that just for the rut and then leave. And I'm not counting the deer that you randomly get 1 or 2 sets of pictures of and then they're gone. I'm talking deer that
see them once or twice.
that are fairly consistent, that weren't there all summer. They seem to, from the ones that we've seen that don't get killed, they seem to pretty much, if they're there during the fall and they have the food and everything they need, they will also be there during the winter.
And you're not, but I don't think you're necessarily talking about just the rut though either. There, once it starts to become fall, before the rut's even starting, we're getting different deer.
Yeah, and I think, and then obviously here in the
And then
Midwest,
under
the
the
other
rut,
big
you
thing
also-
that impacts that is harvest.
Yep.
They start cutting corn.
And we've experienced the good side and the bad side of all of that. We've experienced the deer that was there, that lived on us in the summertime. We're thinking, oh boy, we got a good deer here, and then gone. And then next year he's back, and he's back there in the summer, and you're like, dang. Because we don't know if he got killed, and then come to find out he's just a summer resident. He's not a fall resident. Then we have the exact opposite sometimes, where we don't see anyone all summer, and bloop, he shows up every fall.
Yep.
And then for certain in the Midwest, where the agriculture is such a big part of the landscape, we have tons of deer that do not show up until the corn is cut.
Yeah.
They've figured that one out. I mean, and we've filmed them and everything else where they're living out in it, and they just go there and they stay there. So all the summer scouting in the world may not, other than maybe you do get a glimpse of them and you see them, and then that keeps you in a stand just a little bit longer one day. Because that's the whole thing is, I just think that it's a very small group of people out there are actually hunting one deer. I think the majority are out there going, I want to kill a good deer, and it needs to be this size, and they kind of set it. And I think,
or even a deer. I know tons of people that just
want to kill a deer, period, or a buck. They want to kill their first buck with it.
I've been there too.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of guys that go into the season, and I'd be right there with them. I've done it. That they have 2 or 3 picked out that they're willing to shoot, and that they're going to target. But then when
that changes real quick,
one other buck that looks all right walks by, they shoot him.
Well, one shows
and
up
I've done that.
One shows up on social media. Another one ends up, you see him go over on the neighbors. You can't hunt him, and now you're into a situation where you don't have much choice. And so you make the choice that I'm going to shoot something else.
Well, or people just they get excited and they decide that they're going to shoot that deer, because that's what I did.
Absolutely.
The one year I was trying to kill a deer our neighbor killed, it was like 190, and I said,
Hey.
I'm not going to shoot this. I'm not going to shoot this other deer, because I really want to kill this really big one. And then Dragon, when he started walking towards us, I was like, yep, I think I'm going to shoot this one.
Well, I was going to, and I was in the tree that day. I happened to be running the camera, and I'm the one saying, you can't let this deer go. Unfortunately, you've done the exact opposite to me, where I've had a good deer that I'm like bow in hand, ready to shoot. Deer is within bow range, and my cameraman is telling me, you can't shoot that deer. He's only 4.
But there's a difference. You've
Yeah,
already
but look at the
killed
deer
some
now.
of those deer.
We never saw him again.
Well, you have one that you wanted to shoot last year. That's
Yes,
4.
I agree. So, I mean, it just depends on where you are in your hunting.
Yeah, I would never tell somebody that's their biggest deer ever.
Absolutely.
Shoot that deer all day. But you killed several other deer that were in that same caliber, and we wanted to try to kill one that was in the next caliber. So,
right.
And we thought he had a chance of getting there.
I think you would also, do a lot better. I'm just gonna call you out actually a little bit here. First off, you might not run the cameras and stuff during the summer. You're driving around everywhere around our farms all the time during the summer. That is a form of preparing.
I haven't
scouting.
much this year. Well, that's just
You haven't
'cause I like
started yet
seeing-
this year,
I
but you're
just
gonna.
like-
Yeah, they're not fully grown yet.
I just like seeing deer.
Yeah,
I
but
like
you're
seeing
still
what I see.
checking to see. Oh, I saw him tonight. I know where he's at. I saw him tonight.
I just like seeing them.
I,
Yeah.
I think and that probably goes for everyone across the country that hunts whitetail deer. We all like to see them. Seeing them confirms that they're there. If nothing else, it keeps you in a stand a little bit longer, keeps that hope alive. And so, see, for me, trail cameras are another way, and I see more deer through my trail cameras than I ever do driving around. There's deer that I'll see on trail camera that I'll never, ever even lay eyes on.
Oh, for sure. But there's also deer during the summer that I'll see that I never see. We never see on cameras or anything else. That
Correct.
hammer, the whole reason that I got so obsessed with trying to kill that deer, which he got killed by a neighbor, but he also, the year I tried to kill him, that deer was, I don't know, he was just weird. He was either really, really smart or just a total nomad. But part of the reason that I was so big on trying to kill him was because I saw him that summer, and he was freaking huge. I was like, holy crap. And then I never had a picture of him or anything until, I think it was not till like, well, actually, that's what it was. So I felt like a total idiot because I hung a stand, I called it Hammer Stand, which was stupid. I should have known I'd jinx myself as soon as I
you
did
screwed
that.
that one up real quick.
Yeah, I hung this
Or even
camera
hung
and
it.
I called
It
it
makes
Hammer Cam.
Yeah,
And
and that's and the whole thing is, it's for those that didn't pick up on that, the name of the deer was Hammer,
Yes.
and he got his name because we picked up a shed from him, and I mean it's a hammer. It's like
It's also like the weight of a hammer.
yeah, it's
like,
the one of the, if not the heaviest antler we've ever picked up.
yeah, both like mass and density. Like
Right.
it's almost 4 pounds. So here I name all this stuff Hammer Cam and everything, and I've been waiting on this deer and waiting on him and hoping he's going to show up. And he doesn't show up. And I'm like, man, I'm so stupid. I named this freaking camera Hammer Cam and stuff, and now this deer's never going to show up. And then like the last couple days of season, I pulled the card, and it was like November 30th or something through December 3rd or 4th, right before shotgun season. And he was there 5 days in a row, every single day. And so our theory was with him was that he knew shotgun season was coming, and he knew that he was safe on our place. So I tried to kill him during muzzleloader, and I think we almost killed him, but the farmer screwed it up.
But so what are some of the things that I mean, and I have a few. I have some that I don't do, that I know guys that are more intense about their preseason scouting than even I am. And one of the guys that he came and hunted with, he came and filmed for us, Ben. Remember when Ben came down? I mean, he's to the point where he's actually raking the leaves away to his stands, and he'll actually manipulate trees, fallen trees and things like that, to force deer to go around them, because they will. I mean, you can kind of manipulate them around there. And so, I mean, there's a degree that someone can go to. Just depends on who you are and what you want to do. You know, I mean, for us, I don't know that that's possible because we hunt a bunch of small farms. We don't hunt one big contiguous farm. If I had one big contiguous farm, I would probably treat that with a different preparation. You know, I might have a major food source that I'm watching for most of my deer, and I don't go in there very often or whatever. But probably for me, I would do the exact opposite. I'd be driving around that thing the whole time. I'm trying to condition them that we're going to be here in a month or 2 months or whatever, and we're going to be here now too. So you better to get used to me, and they do. And I mean, that goes to how smart are these deer, you know, and I think they're extremely smart. I give them a lot of credit, but I also think that sometimes we give them too much credit. We don't realize that all they're doing is being conditioned.
I think some are extremely smart. I think others are dumb as a rock.
Possibly, but they're still a wild animal. They still have the upper hand when we
They have
walk out
senses,
there.
but there's some deer that we all would agree were just stupid. I mean, they were not.
And there's some that are insanely smart.
Yeah, there's some that are like, how are you a deer?
Like Floppy Tongue.
Yes, Floppy Tongue is a wizard.
Okay,
that is a
now when
doe.
you guys
Hey, one
mention a
of you is
deer's
on
name,
my-
you got to mention.
I don't know what happened to her. I
No,
just
no,
know
you
it's
got
doe
Floppy.
that-
Floppy Tongue's a doe that has lived on one of our farms, and that deer now. We had a picture of her last year. I haven't gotten a picture of her yet this year.
She's
I
got
don't
to be
think.
dead.
She's got to be 10 years old or 8 or 9 at least. Because let's see.
It would all depend on. We didn't notice her until that first year, and I think that she got injured. So her name's Floppy Tongue because her tongue flops out. Like it does. It's
Never
always
goes in.
out.
Yeah, she can't pull it back in
Yeah,
her
there's
mouth.
something wrong with her jaw or something. And so, but I know it was like 2017, either 2016 or 2017 is the first time that
You
she
saw her.
busted me in that tree. Yeah.
Right.
I think it was 16. It was early.
Well, whatever year it was, we realized we had seen her the year before. That's kind of so we're talking 15 to 22. You know, she's at least 7, and I think she's older than that.
Yeah, and she busts you all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody except for him. Apparently, he had an opportunity at one time.
I
At one
didn't
time
know
and
she
didn't
was
shoot
on
her.
the kill list.
No cameraman, so we cannot corroborate that
Okay.
story. So
So have you heard of this? Have you heard of it? Let's see if you guys would do this. You heard of the bump and dump technique?
I have not. Bump
So,
and dump.
Bump
That
and dump.
doesn't
That's
sound-
what they're calling
This
it.
is a deer technique,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
that's what I'm asking.
So is what they'll do is like early season when they think that these deer are on a pretty strict pattern. You know, they're going to a food source, they're going to a bedding area. They'll intentionally walk into the bedding area and try and find this deer and intentionally bump him, spook him off of his bed, and then come back the next morning and hunt that over that bed, assuming he's going to come back.
What's,
And so some of them, apparently, I guess it must have worked or they wouldn't be talking about this technique. Would you ever try something like
No.
that?
no, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
At least my initial thought. That's the first time I haven't given it much thought. Because I will say this. I will say that we talked about this in another podcast, that I do believe that just because a deer gets jumped from an area doesn't mean he's going to leave. How many times have pheasant hunters and quail hunters told, at least in my experience, I've had a bunch of them that have said, hey, are you guys hunting this tract of land? Are you hunting that CRP? I keep every year we come out here, and boy, there's a big one, and he's always down here in this spot. So the deer goes back there. So I don't know if he go back the next day. Could
Well,
very
this would
much
be my
so.
question on. I feel it. So there, I would think it depends on the deer because there's a few deer that I could think of that I think that you could possibly do that, and it might work. But I can think of some other deer where you just committed suicide. You're not that deer.
Gone.
See,
It may not be gone permanently, but he's gone for a while.
I would think on a junior that might have worked. You
Yeah.
knew exactly where he was bedded, and Junior's a deer that Warren and the whole family was hunting, but Warren and Karen had the most encounters with him. I mean, to the point where we should have killed him. Neighbor ended up killing him.
Well,
scored-
if it wasn't for that stupid blind, I would have killed him.
Yes. And what he's talking about, a stupid blind, is I had a bail blind given to me, and I put the bail blind in there because there was bales in the field. I mean, it was like no brainer. You couldn't even tell it was there. The problem with bail blinds is they're not designed for archery hunters, and so the deer was sometimes 20 yards from you, and you couldn't shoot him.
It was at 16, and it was just in the corner of the blind where I didn't have a
Couldn't
window
shoot.
or anything, so I couldn't shoot him.
Right.
Yeah, that could have worked with him. But I think the other thing, so the thing that confuses me about that technique is I think a lot of these guys that are using that are on public. And, assuming that those deer are getting bumped a frequent amount or something like that and that they would come back to the same spot. In my eyes, I would think that could be true. Maybe the deer is getting bumped and more pressure because it is public. But I would think that if that deer is a smart deer, that he's probably going to be quite a bit more cautious about entering that area, especially if he was bumped the day before, that he may do a full circle to get the wind or whatever before he goes into that. I would have to
I feel like there'd also
talk
be a
to
point
somebody
where
about
if they
that and see
think
what
that they're
they're-
getting bumped that bad, when's gonna be the last time they're like, all right, I'm done with this, and just not
Yeah.
come back.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you don't want to be the guy that does that to yourself. I mean, that's a gamble that someone's taking. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying I haven't done it and I haven't given it enough thought.
I'd be
see-
interested to talk to someone that's tried that and just see what their experience is on it or their theory, just because it seems like a really interesting theory to me.
Yeah,
Maybe if
I
you're,
don't like it.
I wouldn't do it at all personally, just because I
don't
would
know why,
rather.
I just don't feel like it.
I just don't want them knowing I'm there.
Well, it would be. I'd like to. Maybe we can find someone that comes on the podcast and talks about it and tells us they've done it. And I don't think I'd buy someone. I'm not going to say it's a truly proven tactic if it's worked once. It has to have worked multiple times, and I think that's where everything that we're talking about and talking about scouting, it's because we've either seen it work or seen it not work, is why and that's what we're doing continually with hunting, with any hunting, but with deer hunting especially. every year you learn something, and every year whatever you learn, you apply that to the next year. And Bullwinkle's probably one of the best examples of we knew by the time you figured it out where he was, you were too late. When we figured out, okay, he's coming to this scrape, we were already past the time when he was going to come to the scrape religiously. Now he's going to be chasing does. And then the next year you apply it. Okay, this is what we got to do, and it works.
Right. Well, that's the other thing that confuses me about that is a lot of those guys that, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of the guys that have that theory of that they can do this bump and dump are some of the same guys that say that these deer will go and they're always betting on different places, according to the wind, because they're never going to travel without the wind in their face. And so my question to that would be then how can you're stating that the deer has multiple bedding areas, so you're only going in there and doing this bump and dump if you got 2 days of the same wind? Or how?
I don't know.
I just have lots of questions on that.
Yeah, because the other thing, what you don't know unless you do think you have a really good idea which way he's going out. What way is he coming back in?
Yeah, that's
just because he runs one way doesn't mean he's going to turn around and come right back from that direction.
Yeah. Well, I think we get that stuck in our heads a lot too, because Ralph, that really big deer I was trying to kill, I had one encounter with him early October. It was like October 13th, where he came. He was at like 50. No, he came to 40. Came to 40 yards. Couldn't get a shot at him. And he was just a little too far. It was getting too dark. And then he went out in this field that we were sitting next to. And then the next morning, we were sitting on the other side of the farm, which was a pretty decent ways. And here he comes from west of us, completely, totally opposite of what you'd have thought he'd have done. You'd have thought he'd have gone out in that field, and there's lots of agar out there and milled around, and then come back in that way. And no, he'd made this humongous circle or just turned right back around and went over there at some point, and then came back in from that direction the next day.
Yep.
There's so much that goes on at night that we don't realize, I think.
I think that's a lot. Everyone, and I think maybe it's been taught that we try to tell everyone, okay, and then generally speaking, it's correct. Food source, bedding area, hunt the area between the two. And the closer you are to the food, the later in the evening your hunt is going to take place probably. And then if you're going to be hunting first thing in the morning, you're closer to the bedding area as they come back. What we don't take into account is that deer has 8, 10, 12 hours worth of feeding to do. Yeah. And he may go out there for 2 hours and feed and decide he wants to go to a different cornfield that is 2 miles away or a half a mile away, and he goes right back past. So then the next morning you're sitting in the bedding area waiting for them to come a certain way. What do? Here he comes with the wind right in his face because he was somewhere else, not because he was only walking with the wind in his face.
That's
but it appears that way.
Yeah.
Well, thank God for that. Otherwise, if we had this down to a science where it worked every single time as perfectly as we wanted, we wouldn't do it. And so I love it that they win. I just was writing some VO for one of the shows, and what else is there out there that you can get your butt kicked and love the fact that you're getting your butt kicked?
Not much.
Hunting is one of those things. You play in a baseball game or a football game, it's no fun being on the losing side.
No, it is not.
I think I can only embrace that in theory. I hate getting my butt kicked.
That's not true.
I'm agreeing with you. I see where you're coming from as far as that if you didn't ever lose, it wouldn't be fun. But at the same time, it's still, I don't like it when I lose. Like when a big buck wins me, I'm like super pissed.
See, I love when they're winning, I'm learning the most.
Oh, whatever. I know, mister. You get all upset. Okay, maybe the first time. After the fourth time, you're like, man, I just can't catch a break. These deer are just kicking my butt.
They are. I don't mind stating
straight up. It's been, I don't know how he's doing it.
It's all good. It is still good. It's still good. Really good.
Well, I'm saving. Eli, make sure you cut this clip so that I can save this for November through November 15th in case Dad gets to like November 15th and he hits panic button.
No, I don't think panic button.
If you do get past a certain, I will say I agree with you in the fact that I enjoy the challenge and I enjoy that when they are smarter than me, that I'm learning something else. I don't. Your winning theory of always winning would just.
No, I'm not saying I always want to win, but I'm just saying it still hurts when you lose. Especially
hold on. Let me say
before let me finish. When you do get to a certain point in the season, it is like, okay, whatever target deer dad had is not even on the top of the list. Whatever deer is walking by is gonna die. So get ready.
That's the
But-
problem when you get a landowner tag.
He's got a
don't-
second tag to fall back
Yeah.
on.
Don't get me wrong. I would prefer to go out and kill
Look at
one
him,
on the first
he
day.
knows it.
I love to shoot him on the first day.
Yes,
but-
he's got one tag punch. Now I don't mind losing.
No, it's and I don't. I guess there's winning though, even in losing, and that what I mean by that is if I think that I had them within range, that I had them like within bow range, that's a win to me. I mean, they
I
made
hear
a
what
mistake.
you're saying, but you can't tell me. I know that there's been when Juice went by us at Wagner's and you got the full draw.
Yeah, but that was
that,
over
that didn't hurt.
2 years.
Yeah,
That
but
was
think
2
about
years
that
and like
too.
8 or 10 possibilities.
I know, but I'm just saying, it hurt.
Yeah, but
or
think
the
about
time
it.
that you
In the
had
moment-
had a booner following a doe, and then the doe, I can't remember if she busted you or he just didn't follow or what. That hurt a little bit.
Which one?
2 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. That deer was
Yeah,
huge.
see?
No, but here's the thing though. What I was
I
gonna
don't
say
know
with
what
that
deer
is
you're talking about.
it was on my place.
Oh,
With Juice though, 2 years later when he finally kills him, look how much more that meant.
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
If he would have just Juice showed up, that
I'm
would've been
agreeing
just-
100%. I'm just saying it does hurt a little bit when
Well, yeah, when it doesn't
I'm
work
not
like
arguing.
you
when
want
you
it
have
to.
a
don't
one
argue that at all.
when a 180 wins you, it's not like, oh man, I just love the challenge and good for him. I'm just so happy. It's like, you freaking no.
No, I don't like it when you do put everything together. I think what I don't like more than that is when I haven't prepared everything, and I think something happens that it's my fault.
You could have done better.
Yeah, I put the blind in the wrong spot, put the stand in the wrong spot, took a cameraman that was making noise, or someone who put someone in a stand that was coughing or making whatever, or didn't go early enough or got out too early. I mean, those are the types of things, and that was
I
something.
think it's the other losses that help you get ready for trying to kill like a big one. That because have you ever heard Nick talk about his neighbor? So we had a buddy that killed a 258-inch deer or something like that,
Yeah, I think-
and he said
Free
that
range.
free
yes.
range, absolute monster. And Nick said he didn't know, like he thought he would have physically thrown up. I guess he had one other neighbor that was on him too and trying to kill him, and he said that neighbor quit hunting for like a year or two, just because he was so
after he shot it.
so hurt over that deer. Which I've said that before. When I've really thought I've seen some of these guys that go, we haven't even had the opportunity to be in that position yet, but I don't know that I would want a 220, 230, 240 type deer because some of the stress that I see these guys go
Oh,
through,
yeah.
I don't know that it would. I think it could possibly take all the fun out of it. Like that dude quit hunting for 2 years just because he was so. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's a little
Extreme,
over the
maybe.
top, but I could see how you're hunting a deer of a lifetime like that, and that it could hurt a lot.
For sure. But most people aren't, hunting a deer of that caliber.
Oh yeah, that's a once in many lifetimes type deer. But there's a lot of people we know here in Iowa that have had opportunities at 200 plus deer or been chasing them.
Oh yeah, for sure. All
I
right.
think they'll
Well,
be
I
cute.
don't know how do we summarize this then? Should you pre-scout or not? I'm gonna tell you should do all kinds do as much pre-scouting as you possibly can. Make sure your stands and your blinds and stuff are in the right locations. Summer, in my opinion, is not as informative as what winter is. Like what you were talking about, Easton, where you can
See 'em in
go
the
out
snow
there
and
and
stuff.
see things. Summer, you're really, to me, you're just you're taking advantage of what you've figured out from last hunting season, and it's time to go in and do your prep work then.
Summer, I agree. Winter by far is the best time to learn your deer, without
For
a
sure.
doubt. Nothing. Shed hunting is the best time because you can be going through bedding areas. You can be seeing where their rubs are. You can, for sure, 100%, absolute best time to scout, in my opinion.
I'm also in favor of preseason
Pre-season?
preseason preparation. I do a lot of it,
Yeah.
or as much as I can,
So for those of you
for
out there,
enjoyability and for knowledgeability.
yeah, for those of you out there that are trying to figure out whether you're not, what should you be doing in the summer, I think the one that we would all say is get a trail camera, get it out there. Whether you, depending on time, when you put it out there, Warren would tell you don't need it anytime sooner. But if you want to see, see what deer are around, maybe because, and again, when we go back to public land type stuff, in that particular case, you could have a deer that doesn't stay there, but he gets bumped out of somewhere else. and you don't know that. I mean, you would know that that deer existed, but then you might see him again because there are other people that are playing a factor on that. So, but does that help you to kill that deer? Probably not. Just the knowledge, just having. So I would agree that the summertime part of it, there's not as much that we're doing to actually help us kill a deer. It's actually just giving us a little more knowledge about the deer.
I think the big part is just knowing what's there.
Yep.
Yeah, it gives you inventory for sure.
All right. Well, as we've said before, the Raised Hunting Podcast looks for, comments. Let us know what you guys want to hear, what you're thinking, and we'll try to cover it. This one actually, we'll give a shout out to Sean Anthony, who brought up this topic, and he's the one that kind of said, hey, man, talk a little bit about preseason scouting, and he just, was asking about food plots and whether you should do them, and how I think that's a whole different podcast if we get into just food plots, what we plant, what we don't plant, why we plant it, when we put it in, that stuff. So anyhow, thanks again, guys, from Warren Easton and myself and all of us here at Raised Hunting. We appreciate you. So stay tuned for the next podcast.